Hi, everyone. Welcome to this interview by Core Recruitment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Core, if you're not aware, is an international recruitment company. We deal at mid to senior level across exec and non-exec positions. We're running this interview series, and we've met a plethora of really interesting business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who are doing interesting things in the sectors we operate in. And they can all be viewed on our website, which is www.corerecruitment.com. Now, I've actually got a cool story that can start off with this because, like, probably about 18 years ago, there I was with my other half hanging out in Bungalow 8 in the basement of a trendy West London hotel. And he introduced me to one of his PR mates who was like incredibly glamorous. And then I met her husband, who's quite a dapper looking young man at the time. And we ended up having a whole night of drinks and everything together as well. And it turns out that he'd started off this new concept called Pure that had queues going literally around the corner and was on the Sunday Times fastest growing list. And well, anyway, we're meeting with Spencer Craig today. So hi, Spencer, how are you?
It's a good intro. You could do that every day I walk into a room, Christian, and that would be good. I like it.
I'll just walk ahead of you from now on and just kind of like do your announcement for you and kind of like poof your hair a little bit and then we can
Thank
go
you.
from there, Spencer. You
Thank
have
you.
not aged a day. Do you still hang out in trendy West London
Very
nightclubs?
kind. Well, the aging is the filter I put on the Zoom, and you've literally probably picked the one time I went to a club in my whole life as the moment. So no, but you still hanging out in trendy, or you've got some stamina, right? You can still do it.
I mean, I work in recruitment, so I have no option but to have stamina when it comes to
Yeah.
these things. I'm really into zebraing now, but I don't have one drink of water and then one alcoholic drink. I'll have like a pint of water followed by like a tiny drink and then kind of go from there. But that's what your 40s do to you, Spencer. It's kind of depressing. But anyway, there you go.
Catches up.
Exactly. So if you were going to go into Pure and order something, if you did have a hangover, because we're going to get onto Pure and talk a little bit about that, what's the number one hangover cure at Pure?
I think still that we've got a bacon and egg toasty, which is still close to my heart, and I have it very. I actually like prefer cold breakfast, so I'm a yogurt smoothie, overnight oats. But if the need is there, then yeah, the bacon and egg toasty is still does. I'm still does the trick.
Oh my God, I'm all over that. Next time I've got a hangover, 100%, which will probably be tomorrow, let's face it. So
Okay.
it's kind of all good. So for those who don't know Pure, can you just give us a snapshot of the business? That'd be great.
Yeah, well, yeah, Pure is a food to go brand. It started life primarily, in fact, entirely as a retailer. So for those that don't know, we're like a pret-a-manger, breakfast and lunch, and people are on the move. And we have shops in central London, railway stations, and Gatwick Airport. Um, Obviously, we're primarily based in workplace locations. So COVID was not particularly kind to us, which meant that we, over the last few years, have diversified the business. So we are now much more of a multi-channel business. And we have two other channels. So we've got the shops that people sort of know us from. We have a really big, really fast growing catering business. So for meetings, events, and conferences. So anything from 6 people to 500. So we do work for amazing businesses. We work for Amazon. We work for Shark Ninja. We work for Chanel. It's a brilliant, brilliant part of the business. It's really cool. Chanel got you there, right?
Yeah, I did totally. Did you drop
Yeah,
some names behind you on the floor there, Spencer?
exactly. All
Jesus.
right, just 1 second there. And even cool. And then that led us into another sort of world where we started then a third channel is wholesale. So we now make long life, which is in our business 3 days, 3 day life product, which we wholesale to other people and they sell on our behalf. So if you go to the XL Centre in London, there are Pure fridges in there with our food. NEC in Birmingham, and about 40 or so offices, which you maybe can't go into, but big global kind of companies that have our food in their buildings that they buy and sell. So it's sandwiches, wraps, salads, similar to what you might see in a Pure fridge, but wholesale to them. So that's been a big project for the last year.
Amazing. And there's lots of companies at the moment that are looking at how they diversify, how they move multi-channel, how they build that kind of strategy. Can you just walk us through a little bit about how you did that and what kind of infrastructure you had to put in place to make that a success?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And I don't want to sort of, I don't want to completely sort of not retell the story like it was some massive strategic thing. Ultimately, we had shops and we had the ability to make food, and we didn't have customers coming in, right? So we needed to sort of, leverage our assets, and we can deliver. So the catering we've been doing for a while, even pre-COVID, but our food is particularly good because it's cold generally, sort of the cold foods like fridge food. So it travels really well, and it's very good for meetings, and it's also it's obviously healthy, but it's also kind of generic. It's not particularly spicy or one particular flavor. Things like sushi in a meeting, maybe people can't, not everyone's a kind of flavor. So I think that one of the things for when people are looking to diversify is that, you've got to pick the things that, the brand is sort of naturally suited to. So we took what we were doing in our stores and changed it into a sharing format, and then worked really, really hard on our operations. So we have overnight teams and a whole delivery system,
Wow.
customer service. So we to take it out, we can't you can't just sort of stick it on a bike and send it out. We worked very hard on the operations to make it as streamlined as possible. So that's the catering bit. Hopefully I've answered that properly. And on the wholesale side, we've had a CPU for a number of years where we make a number of items for ourselves, like things like salad dressings, but also things like our porridge, our overnight oats. We sort of make them to our recipes. So we had some expertise in central production, not quite enough, as it turned out, just to simply start selling our products. So we had to go through, there's a thing called salsa, which is like basically what's the word I'm looking for? Like a regulatory body that approves that you are a safe place to make food and other people to sell it. So we had to go through about a year of that whole process, and you get several inspections and audits. So that was the big thing we had to do in our kitchen, and then obviously work on the recipes so that they taste as good on day one as they do, or day three as they do on day one, which is a big challenge in the wholesale business. So it's been a huge challenge actually for the team, and our team has been incredible because they are retailers, really. That's what the business was, and the experience of running retail. And then so to diversify into these two things has been a huge challenge, but necessity is the mother of all. What's the word? What's it? Necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. As I was saying that, I was like, is that the right one? Yeah, that's it. Necessity is the mother of all invention. And, we had to do it, and we've done it brilliantly, and we're out the other side, and reaping the rewards from that.
And in terms of proportions, like across those three channels, like percentage wise, what would you say sits in each basket?
So retail is still our biggest bit, but we're now 60-40 between,
Yeah.
if
Wow.
I take, so 60% retail, about 40% is the other bits. Wholesale is the newest, and wholesale, we're selling it at cost price. So it's not like the value is you sell a lot of items, but you're selling it at a fraction of the price that it appears retail. But yeah, we're now about 60-40. So the business is really, really diversified from where it was coming into COVID, when it was 95 retail and a little bit of other stuff.
And in terms of the growth plan kind of moving forward, is it that kind of like, is it that catering kind of like events, that kind of side of things? Kind of like, is that where you see the kind of growth coming?
It's actually all three. I mean, you asked a question before about diversifying. I think, we are a brand, and we've always been branded, and we're a chain. And so, like, leveraging the brand is a key bit for us, right? Whereas if you're a restaurant and you may be local or something like that, it's a bit harder to do. So we've got opportunities everywhere. So we're looking at new stores, particularly in travel.
Hmm.
We're doing really, really well in all of our travel locations. We are growing catering actively every day and winning new accounts. And for example, now we've got a few clients where, like event spaces in London, where we are the caterer. So
Yes.
if you go and book the space, you get given our menu and you order from it. That's a whole other new thing for us. Not just like occasionally we deliver somewhere. We are the preferred supplier. Again, new skill for us. And wholesale's about a year old, and it's just we've been blown away by how good it is. Like everywhere we've gone, we are we're more expensive than what was there before because it's more premium, but we're outselling by 20-30% what was there before. And so actually we don't know how far that can go. We're having lots of interesting conversations about that. Like, how far can it go? We don't quite know yet. But we're looking to grow all three, is
Excellent.
the long answer to the
Fantastic.
short question.
Now, going back to the origin kind of side of things, because you were at Oxford, you did politics, philosophy, and economics. And last week, like, you won a sandwich making award at the
Yeah.
Sammys, which is like,
Yeah.
so I mean, like, tell us a bit about the journey in terms of like, what were you planning on doing with that when you finished up at Oxford, Spencer?
Oh wow, I don't often talk about that. What was I planning to do? Well, probably if my mum was here, she'd say, you want to be prime minister, didn't you? Right? So I think that shit might have
Did you?
so yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I was a kid, I mean, for another day, Christian. I mean, it's a thankless task. Whatever's going on in the world now, that is a
There's
difficult.
more job stability in sandwiches, Spencer.
That
I'm
is a
definitely saying
difficult
that.
job. Yeah. So the honest answer is that I worked in a startup with some friends from university, and I liked that environment. I was maybe going to go and do banking and that kind of stuff, but for whatever reason, just fancy doing something a bit different at the time. At the time, startups weren't that cool as well. I was pioneering, Christian. It wasn't that culture wasn't the same, but a couple of brilliant people started a business called Fresh Minds, actually. They're sort of in recruitment research space. Brilliant business, great people. And then I used to go to Pret for lunch every day. Thought it was very cool. Loved it. Loved the service. I loved the branding and the service and all that element. But was also, as I was in New York a bit at the time, there were lots more healthy options over there. And it was
Yeah.
sort of like, can we merge the two? Can we get the service levels and the consistency of a Pret and the polish of a Pret and make it healthier? And that's really the origin of how it started. And so the degree went, and off I went, sandwiches.
And your business partner, Ed Bentley. So, I mean, I don't know if this conversation is one for recording or not, but Ed, we actually had, he was going to, and well, he flew out with his family. He was one of the last packages that we had where a client would actually fly not only the individual, but his partner and his kids and all that kind of stuff. And they flew in business class out to Dubai, wined and dined him, all of that kind of stuff. And then he called me like when he got back and he's like, Christian, I'm not going to take the job. And I was like, you kidding me? He's like, no, I'm going to go and start my own company. And that's how
Yeah,
Pure kind of like came across.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
kind of like it all kind of like intertwined somehow, kind of like all the way back then, and it was definitely the best move for him,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
But how did you guys get together, and what was the origin? What was it like starting out?
Funny, yeah, we met each other through. It's like I mean, this is how the world is. Like my dad had a friend from school, and he knew someone that knew Ed, and we were doing this thing, and he knew that Ed had experience. He'd obviously been at Eat and involved in Coffee Nation, the Polish one. I can't remember the name of it now, but the Polish sort of coffee brand. And I knew nothing because I'd just been, studying, so and not doing anything. So we got together. He had lots of expertise in food and operations, and it was a brilliant partnership. And if people, you might ask me later on, like, what's the best bit? The best bit of the whole journey was when we went from like 1 to 8 shops, me and Ed doing everything in the shops every single day, knew every single person's name. Oh, it was fun. It was so fun. Like queued out the door, it was sort of swashbuckling and just everything that it was brilliant. That bit was that by far and away the best, the most fun, and the best bit. And together we were a brilliant team together doing that bit, complemented each other, but both had lots of passion for what we were doing. So yeah,
And
that's
this is where the Sunday Times fastest growing company, that was around that time then, is that
exactly
right?
it. 15, 16. That was exactly that. Yeah. So we were having, it was just, God, it was fun. Christian, it's good to remember that stuff. And yeah, and then we were not quite sure. We knew we wanted to maybe to go. We thought we had something which was special. And at the time we owned the company between us and one other investor. So, it was small business, but successful, and we had it. And then, yeah, gave us the confidence and to go out and raise some money. And the end of the story is, which obviously is that we ended up getting investment from Whitbread at the time, who were owned Costa at the time, and Premier Inn, and they were looking at some other sort of brands maybe, and to try and grow some stuff, and we were the sort of first one that they took on. So that journey, we had 8 shops in 2016. And then by the sort of end of, well, I'll get to March 2020 maybe later on, but by March 2020, which is like four, it was like just under 4 years because it was May 16. We were 23 and about to open 24, 25, 26. Like that was, so we were, yeah.
Juggernauting.
But that was, that bit was fun. I mean, that was so challenging. I wouldn't say fun, I mean, that bit of going from 10 to 20 stores, that's hard. That was so hard. So that anyone out there who is doing that, you have my absolute admiration. And
Why is that so Is it because you're delegating down and you need to trust the people beneath you? Is it the structures or the systems? What makes it so challenging?
yeah, it's that. I mean, for anyone that works for me, probably they'll say, you know, you are the biggest control freak. I mean, you are probably too, Christian. And so I see how hard you work and what you do. So, um, yeah, that bit of going, you know, we had to put in finance director and budgets and heads of departments and training and systems and yeah, that whole transition is hard. Is really hard. And I think we just about got to that point by like by start of 2020 that we'd sorted out all those things. And you know better than anyone, hiring people is the hardest bit probably of any business really, and that process is tricky. So yeah, bringing in the right people, structures, all that stuff, that's hard.
Yeah, and a lot of pressure because I mean they bought 49% of the business as it was reported for kind of like just under £7 million. So on the face of that headline, that must be like an absolutely incredible thing. But I mean, imagine when you're on the other side and then you have to deliver. That's suddenly like it goes from being swashbuckling to suddenly being quite like I'd been totally nerve-wracked by that, right?
You no, I mean you're proud. I mean, like it's a I don't know what. I've read this from other people say, you know, the money, like you're proud of the achievement because the recognition that someone else is willing to give you any of their money is a lovely feeling. No, I don't recall really feeling under pressure. The pressure is myself, right? I want it to be brilliant. I want customers to have an amazing time. I want our teams to be happy. And Whitbread were just amazing people, like really brilliant people. The woman who was the CEO at the time was one of the most inspirational women and people in business I've ever met in my life. I don't know if you've ever met Alison Britton. She was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she is unbelievable. I've never like I don't know that many CEOs, but of big companies, but I'm like, well, it's obvious why. It's just she was just incredible. Like she was so she just got she's got it so quickly, and so I wanted to impress her, right? She was an amazing woman, and leader, and yeah, so I didn't, you know, I didn't feel pressure with the financial pressure from that, more my own expectations, and you know, wanting to build a brilliant business for our team. So no.
Absolutely. And tell us about how because the Whitbread thing obviously kind of like it didn't happen kind of like in the end. Was that a COVID thing? What kind of happened with it?
Two things really. They they sold Costa a couple of years in.
Hmm.
So they no longer became a conglomerate. I mean, they were pseudo conglomerate, right? But they had a few different things. They had the restaurants within the hotels and the hotels. So once they became a single, really a sort of a hotel business, which is once they'd sold Costa, it was unlikely that they were going to acquire the rest of us. And so we were working towards a plan. You know, 2020 was the year really when it was going to come together. Would have been the fifth year of our relationship together. We'd done all the hard yards, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, that was we had a plan to go through a process in that year, which obviously didn't happen. And then in the end, they were really supportive of us for the cup for the. I mean, I can't the blur of 2021, 22, and all that stuff, but they were really supportive for that period to get us through to a place where we could then find essentially a new home, which we did. Um, and so in the end, a combination of their own strategy was changed by Costa. And then obviously COVID just there was no strategy once COVID came, right? It was just survival, and then we got ourselves to a place where we could then, you know, had a plan to go on in the future. So yeah, in the end, but I really have nothing but great things to say about everyone that I worked with there. There was just really good and decent people. So anyone that's like, oh, FTSE, you know, they were just decent,
Yeah.
really honourable, decent people.
Yeah. And if you look at your journey kind of like through the past kind of like, but well, since the start of Pure, it's like, you've rebranded the Whitbread thing, the diversification, the scaling, the back scaling, the COVID, the this, the that, the next thing. There's a lot of resilience in there. There's a lot of commerciality, like, and I'm sure that kind of like, that's got to, I mean, the resilience is probably the major thing that I'm digging away at here. And in terms of that entrepreneurial kind of mindset, were you always like this? Is this kind of like, do you, like, was it kind of like when you selling lemonade on the street when you were a kid?
Yeah, no, I was. It's a fact that I wasn't that person actually, and I wasn't that person. As in, it's business is really good now, and we've got so much good stuff going on, and obviously we'll maybe reference a bit of that in a minute. Like for 3 or 4 years, I was like, I don't need a lesson in resilience. Like, as in during COVID, I was like, I don't need to, like, as in, and people used to sort of say that to me, oh, well done. I'm like, well, I didn't, as in, I would rather be resilient in, the fact of growing the business, and doing expanding, not like shipping the water out of the,
Yeah,
so, yeah, it has been I had to be resilient, but that is the key thing in I think probably the thing that when you pick out business leaders and people what they've done and what you've done right, that you for whatever reason, whatever it is, it wasn't maybe selling lemonade or you didn't get cuddled enough as a child. I don't know. I got so much love as a child. I did that's definitely not that is definitely not the issue. But yeah, you just have this, I don't know, this it's the resilience, right? To keep going when maybe, yeah, others can't quite get going. So yeah, I do have the resilience and I wish, but I'm excited now to use it for the growth bit rather than
yeah.
the sort of just holding it all together.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the one bit, and like I'll park this, and then like we'll talk about the growth stuff kind of like in a minute. But obviously, the market at the moment is challenging. Like consumer spending is challenging. You mentioned the airport sites and transport hubs are kind of like doing kind of like really well, which is fantastic. But I imagine from kind of like a P&L perspective, from a labor perspective, from a supply chain perspective, I mean, these are all challenging areas at the moment. If you're going to pick out a couple of things that you've been doing to kind of future-proof the business, what would you say has kind of made the most impact?
Well, in some ways, actually, I feel like the world has caught up with us, which is that we have been selling healthy food to go for a long time, right? And I feel that the consumer is now where we were, right? And so we actually just our latest campaign is we were almost going to put something like we've always been doing it or something like that, but we ended up with just like it's what we do. We've got like protein, fiber, flavor. That's what
Yeah.
right. And so we're on the good side here, which is that people want to eat better. They want to eat more healthily. They and we're relatively small in a certain demographic. That if it's substantial and it's sustainable is a big part of it, but healthy and tasty, people will pay. And so for us, we feel pretty lucky that I'll come on to problems in a minute, but ultimately we've just got the consumer on our going our way. We're in a rising tide, and people want to eat better, and are enjoying what we do because of that. That's across all our channels, but that's brilliant. Now, it would be a bit easier if there were not so many cost pressures, right? And shocks. And the shocks are have been numerous for the last few years. And I mean shocks like the strikes, right? So next week, doesn't matter how good we are next week, people can't get near our shops in London, that stuff. So there's things like the strikes, the oil price, electricity. So these things are obviously just maybe that's the new world now. And then I think that your question was, well, what else have we done to future-proof it, right?
Yeah.
Which is yeah. So ultimately that we're in the right space. That's the sort of big bit. We are always looking at trends and making sure that we know kind of we know what is next, and we're in what we think are really sort of big growing spaces. So food to go generally is growing, as is healthy food and protein led food. So it's sort of really focusing on that, being true to ourselves, dialing down on that, knowing why people come to us or buy our food, and we just feel really comfortable with that and where that is taking us. We've got growing demand, and if you haven't got that, it is tricky, right? Because the cost pressures are extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. From a technology perspective, I mean, everyone's jumping on the AI bandwagon. Everyone's kind of like, developing their own app. They're all kind of like, building that kind of stuff out. In terms of what's actually like impacted the business, is there anything that you've been using or implementing that's had an impact?
We're probably a bit behind on this, to be honest, Christian. And I think that um, the the bit that is interesting, we are using much more AI in the bit as every sort of office. So the head office team using AI much more. So the ability to process data, use data, analyze data, see trends. So I think it's a really helping some of our decision making as a head office team. We did quite a lot of work during COVID, just making the operations of the shops simpler. But no, we're not. We are still quite traditionally handmade, and even in the wholesale side of the business, we're hand making the food because that's ultimately what makes the food better. It makes it more consistent. We can control it better. It's just nicer. At this stage, the technology isn't quite there yet. So, in some ways, we're quite traditional in how we make the food, but excited to use some of the new technology to see how we can understand consumers better, all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. Now, one of the other things that I think that you guys were really ahead of the game in, where kind of like, there has been kind of like a lot of people that have been jumping on this bandwagon and off this bandwagon is on the sustainability side of things, especially when it comes to your sourcing and your product and where you've been getting it from and all of that kind of stuff. I think that peaked and now it's kind of like, for some reason it's dropped off, no idea why, but it's like, but it has dropped off a little bit. Could you just tell us about what you think is important to the customer at the moment and what you're still pushing on?
Well, I have a bit of there's one thing that I don't understand, something I don't always understand, right? So we've pushed reusable cups for as long as, well, what are we now? I'll say 8 years, long time before COVID. And we push it so much, we have a pound off if you use a reusable cup, right? So well, I think we're 385 or something for a flat white, but and we don't charge for plant milks. So we are like 285 for a Oatly barista oat milk flat white with a reusable cup in central London, right? And like people don't do it. Like it's so from a it's so what's important to you because you reference their sustainability is maybe drifted because of cost of living and that, but like this is the cheapest thing that you could possibly do. So we actually peaked. We peaked at about 20% reusable cups before COVID. And then COVID wiped out the reusables because everyone thought they were going to get, I don't know quite what happened, right? And we after COVID it went back to about 2 or 3%. We're still only at about 14% or something. So, like, I don't know. It's sustainable and the cost side. So we're not charging anyone more for it. So I'm a bit on the sustainability side. I'm a bit sort of it doesn't sort of quite make sense to me that some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I love what we do. I love the spirit of it, the thoughtfulness, the generosity of it. I do think that, and I'll sort of mix in sustainability with also just quality of food, if that's all right, in terms of this.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of stuff coming out now, GLP-1 and how people are eating. And if you're going to eat less, you want it to be great. And
Yeah.
you're going to put stuff inside your body that is, of a higher quality and more obviously nutritionally dense and all that kind of stuff. So I think there is that going on a bit, which also is I don't we're too small for GLP-1. I don't really we can't really see that in our data, but the move in our market anyway to just really good quality product, and whether that's sustainability is not quite it's sort of a tangent of that.
Love that. So my penultimate question is, if you were starting out again today, like, and you just had Pure as kind of like an absolutely fresh slate, like, how would you set up the business? Are there any walls that you wouldn't run into? What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs out there who are kind of like setting up?
It's a great question. I mean, the mistakes that I've made, Christian, you probably are too long. I think that um, one or if I was setting up a purely retail business, the biggest probably change that's happened over the last decade is the single product retailer, right? So it is the donut guy, the cookie guy, the salad guys, just very, very just brilliant at that. Whereas when we
Yeah.
started, Pret was dominant. It was a wide variety of options, and you'd go there 4 or 5 times a week, right? And it was habitual. But now you go to one place for sushi on Monday that you got like 10 companies that you're a regular customer. You have allegiance to them, but it's sushi and a taco and a burrito bowl and a salad, so being brilliant at one thing, like really owning it. And I think like there's lots of businesses in Tangier, like something like the steak guys, like a Blacklock or a Hawksmoor, like this. Oh, they're just like obviously Flatiron, like
Yeah.
so the single con. So that I think that in the retail space. Now on the flip side for us, our breadth of menu has really, really helped us to grow the catering and the wholesale business because we're not just one thing, and the brand and Pure and the values it stands for we can leverage that in a different way. Whereas obviously if you're I don't know. Obviously, Itsu can't sell sandwiches, right, or something. As in it's so stuck to that. So I think from a retail point of view, for all reasons to do with the way the consumer behaves, owning a space, simplicity, operations, because obviously staff is so much more expensive. That's my big thing. If you're going to do a concept like just pick the thing, make sure it's the thing that's growing,
Yeah.
and do that. And then you said my advice is go and work somewhere for 2 or 3 months, whether that's similar. Find out how hard it is, and then decide if you still want to do it.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I worked at Pret. Yeah, I
For
worked
how
at
long?
yeah. I worked at Pret for about 3 months
In the kitchen?
in the kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I,
Yeah.
I,
There's a
I'll tell you a funny story because I'm not sure I've told this story in years or ever. I remember I was set up on a date with a girl, not through Pret, but previously through my dad, like a friend of the family, right? And it's somebody, and I went on a few dates. It didn't go anywhere. I actually can't remember if it was me or her, but anyway. I'm in Pret. I mean, I was in Pret in Covent Garden. I've got my hat, my hairnet, right? I'm filling the fridges with sandwiches. And I turn to my right and she's standing there. And she looks at me like, oh, going well, is it? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's all right. Thank you very much. Yeah, so you got away lucky. So there we go. So it was funny. It was an amazing experience. What a brilliant business that is. And that's a sort of, yeah, it was to be on the other side, everyone go and work in retail, go and be the other
Oh,
side.
I agree. I think it should be like national service. I think
Yeah,
everybody should have to. I think you're a much nicer customer if you've actually worked in hospitality. There's a really amazing thing that Jeremy King said at a thing that he spoke at kind of like recently. And he said that you should always know the color of your server's eyes. And I teach this to my kids now about kind of like, when you're in a restaurant, you look people in the eye and you say thank you, you say please, and you're respectful to people, which is 100% of like, what's anyway, sorry, I'm getting my high
and then
horse,
nothing
but
upsets me more when people are rude to our team.
yeah,
It's just ghastly behavior.
yeah,
And yeah, so oh,
100%. So my final question,
sure.
the year is 3031. It's a summer's evening. You've decanted to
3031,
that. No, yeah, 3031, 5 years time. You've decanted
2031, 2031,
21, 30
2020, 30. I was like 3031.
in a
I was
thousand
like, we're going
years,
to
in a
Mars or
thousand
something.
years.
Okay,
Well, maybe
2031, 5 years.
2031, 5 years time. It's a balmy summer evening. You're in your nightclub, you're stood at the bar, and like, who walks in but Kristen? And I say, oh my God, Spencer, how are you? How's it going? What were you doing? What are you going to tell me about Pure? Where do you want it to be in 5 years' time?
Oh, that is a good story. That is a good question. Um, hmm, that's a very good question. Look, I want to, I want to do something I'm really proud of. Like, I love. It's not. I love when people say I went into your shop and I was at the airport and I found that was great. I went to a meeting and your food was there. It was brilliant. Like I went to Excel last week and I got something that I could eat because like, usually I can't get anything. So that is probably like the thing. So keep on spreading the word, and I think we've got a chance to grow all three channels and just be really good and committed and look after our team and then I don't quite know where that takes us. Like I know that we do things right, then good things will happen. So I don't quite know where I'll be. I won't be in a club, is what I can tell you, Christian, in 5 years' time. So you might see me on the Norfolk coast somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Good one, good one. But by 3031, definitely on Mars. I mean, I think
Thirty
that
thirty
I'll
one.
hold you to that.
We'll be looking a bit old by then, I think, but yeah.
I love that. Spencer, thanks very much for taking the time. Well done on everything so far. And yeah, we'll watch out for the catering and the wholesale side of things as well.
Thank you so much.